Welcome in, folks, to Medicare Made ABCDEasy here on WRMN, brought to you by Dybvik and Gilley, Insurance Made ABCDEasy. We have Danny Gilley here on the phone lines. Let's get started.
Morning. Good morning, Matt. How are you doing?
Very good, thank you. Thanks so much for calling in today, as always, on this lovely Tuesday.
Oh, yes. I was glad that I was able to call in because I just didn't have time on my schedule to drive in and then do the show and then drive back out. So I was glad I could call in. Okay, let's first little housekeeping done here. If you have any questions at all in regards to Medicare, 847-931-1410. That's the call-in reservation line there at the radio station. And then you can always call our reservation line at 630-320-6906. Leave basically your contact information, and we will get back to you. Also, you can look at our website. It's dybviginsurance.com. And you can also leave me a message there, or if there's any upcoming workshops, which we will have our new workshops in March is when we start, and they'll all be listed on our website. So the locations that's closest to you, you can decide what day, what time you'd like to go. You can even make a reservation on that for that particular workshop right online, or of course you can always use our call-in line to make reservations too. Okay, so that's our bookkeeping. So basically what we'll do now is we'll get into our program. Medicare Made ABCDEasy was actually, we created this whole program about 8 or 9 years ago, and has been so very, very, very popular with our seniors in the area. And you would be surprised how many people that show up at our workshops and comment on the fact that, we've seen a couple of these workshops from different people, but your workshops were the most informative. The reason why is we basically try to go over the workings of Medicare. We try to make sure that we're not pushing any one company. We want you to know the difference between a Medicare supplement or an Advantage plan. What do you have to have? Well, on a Medicare supplement and an Advantage plan, you have to have both Part A and Part B. So that's one of the first things that we will kind of show you how to do, is enroll into Medicare. Turn on that Part A and Part B. That way you can get that taken care of. And then I'm going to bring that up because I actually had a gentleman that did some masonry work on my home. And I was talking to him about Medicare because he said he was getting close to that age. That was about a year ago. And last week he knocked on my door and he said, I lost your card, but he said, I really need to talk to you because I'm turning 65, or I turned 65 already, and everybody's been telling me that, I'm going to have a penalty if I don't turn my Medicare on. And I said, well, come on in. And I sent him in my office, and I talked to him. And I says, well, the first couple things that I need to know from you, because I knew he had a union job, working as a bricklayer. And so the first thing I asked him, I said, are you going to continue to work? He said, yes, I am. I says, okay, and you carry the union insurance, correct? He said, yes, I do. I says, well, I'll tell you, when do you plan on retiring or quitting? And any plans like that coming up anytime soon? He says, well, I'm 65, and I'm going to work at least until I'm 67, because he said, I know that when I'm at my full retirement age, I can work and also draw Social Security if I so desire. I said, that's true. And I also am going to tell you that so long as you have credible coverage, which basically means you have hospitalization, you have doctor coverage, and you have prescription coverage, which you have through the union, you can be 100 years old and never turn your Medicare on. You turn your Medicare on when you decide that you're going to retire and that you don't want to use your group insurance, or they don't offer it anymore, depending on where you work and the situation. Because I know a lot of the unions, for instance, on the AFL-CIO through UPS, a lot of them that retire, then they have to go outside and pick up some of their insurance, especially if they're wanting a Medicare supplement that's not offered. So in that particular case, when I explained it to him, and he goes, wow, I didn't realize that. Then I said, do you also realize that every year that you don't turn on your Social Security, even if you are eligible for Social Security at full retirement, but every year that you wait, your Social Security will grow by 15%. So a lot of people make that mistake. So when you get ready to retire, I want you 30 days before you retire, at least 30 days, if not 60, call me back and we'll schedule an appointment and I will go through everything with you. I'm sure you have a pension, you may have a 401k, and you also have your Medicare that you have to make a decision for, and then you also have your Social Security that you need to make a decision on. Because a lot of people think that, well, when I retire or I get full retirement age, I need to turn it on. Well, not necessarily, because I waited until I was 70 to turn my Medicare on. I'm sorry, not Medicare, but my Social Security, because where can I go and get that kind of return on my investment of 15% guaranteed? And then that pays out that for the rest of your life. So it's a big misunderstanding, and a lot of people make that mistake. So again, Julian, Eric, and myself, we are retirement specialists. We have everything that you would need in the Medicare world. We also have programs that we set up for Social Security. We have Social Security optimization. Matter of fact, we have some Social Security optimization workshops that we do, just like our Medicare workshops. So being retired and moving into retirement isn't something that you figure out the day before you retire. Okay, so some of these things you want, and when I was talking to my bricklayer, and I said, okay, I says, there's a lot of stuff that you need to think about. And I says, I want you to kind of think about, do you need that Social Security now, especially if you're working? Or is it something that you just wanted to collect in additional to? And he says, well, I don't really need it, but I was just going to collect it and have extra income. I says, okay, is that a smart thing for you to do? I'm just asking. So I want you to think about it. And then that way, when the time comes, you've given it some thought. There's nothing wrong with turning it on. There'll be no penalty, no loss of option. And turning it on at your full retirement age, you'll not get anything extra, but there's no penalties. So I said, just keep that in mind when you get to that age and that decision time. And I also scheduled him an appointment that we're going to run a Social Security optimization for him so that he can actually have it, a hard copy, so he can see the difference. So that's kind of what we do, just to kind of let you know out there in the area, especially in the Elgin and the Oak Brook and all around that area, because we have those workshops throughout all of the Northern Illinois segment as far as locations, and we usually do them in the libraries in the area. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, what I want to talk about next is Medicare is broken down into two parts. Part A is the hospital coverage. And basically, there usually is not a premium that is due for most people. If you worked a minimum of 40 quarters and paid your Medicare taxes through your check, your employer contribution, there is no charge. If you did not work the 40 hours, you can still get your Part A, but there is a premium that you would pay. Now, if you never worked because you were the fortunate one that you got to stay home because you were a housewife, but your husband worked, and that doesn't mean you didn't work. What that means is you took care of the house because maybe you had kids, and basically he was out working so you could stay home and take care of the household. Well, that doesn't matter. If he qualifies for it, so do you. So that's kind of the misunderstanding that a lot of people have. But so long as your husband or your wife works, then you're also covered in it too. Okay, so let's go on to the next segment. Medicare has some expenses. In Part A, day 1 through 60, it's $1,736 would be your deductible. Now, that is a 60-day window. Excuse me, 60-day window. And you can go in and out of the hospital during that 60-day window, and it's $1,736. Now, if you stay in the hospital 61 through 90, then it moves to a per-day charge of $434. Day 91 through 150, it would double to $868 per day. Now, again, this is if you don't have anything else but your Part A card, okay? And that's what I'm talking about is in Medicare Part A, those are charges. But I'm also going to go through some of the ways that you can get those charges taken care of. Now, there's also skilled nursing facility co-insurance. Now, skilled nursing is basically a rehab situation. So let's just say you needed a knee replacement. Medicare covers day 0 to day 20. That is covered by Medicare. If you need additional coverage, days 21 through 100, it's $217 per day, and that you are responsible for. And then, again, anything over 101 days, you are responsible for everything. But if you have, again, other coverages, then it will take care of that, some of those expenses. Now, let's look at Part B. What is Part B? Well, that covers anything that has to do with the doctor. So what does that mean? Well, it can be a doctor, a nurse practitioner, can be diagnostic testing, MRI, emergency room. Anything like that is by Part B. And Part B is optional. What that means is basically you have to pay for Part B. Now, if you don't enroll into Part B, this is where a lot of people misunderstand. So they hear this premium penalty, 10% for each full 12-month period, eligible but not enrolled. Well, there's exceptions to that. And you would pay that penalty as long as you had Part B. Limited exceptions. The limited exceptions is basically if you have credible coverage, then that penalty does not apply to you, and you do not have to enroll into your Medicare until the time comes that you no longer have that guaranteed issue for your insurance through your employer. It's credible. Then that's what we're talking about. Now, initial enrollment into what we call the IEP, initial enrollment, is 7 months, 3 months before the month of eligibility, the month of, and 3 months afterwards, okay? And let's just assume everybody that you had an April birthday. Well, that just basically means that January you can start doing your enrollment process. And I do recommend everybody take that 3 months before and start your enrollment process, even though it's not going to start till April 1st. But if there's any mistakes, any errors, maybe you were married and you're divorced, and so now you have a change where you need to bring that information in to Social Security so they can verify all that information. So do take that full 3 months and enroll into with a start date of April. And then May, June, and July, your IEP ends, and then that's when you would have a penalty if you didn't have credible coverage. Now, I'm just using this as an April birthday or an April retirement. You're 80 years old, but you're retiring for the first time in April. It's just to kind of give you a guideline. So what is Part B? Okay, I told you that anything that is covered by doctor, hospital, diagnostic testing, anything like that is part of Part B, okay? And the annual deductible for your Part B is $283. And that starts in January and ends in December. So you would be responsible for that $283 as your deductible for your Part B. Medicare then picks up 80% and you pay 20%. Now, again, what I said before is keep in mind there's a lot of holes in Medicare. And how you take care of those is you either buy a Medicare supplement or a Medicare Advantage plan. So there's two different types of coverage. And the difference is the Medicare supplement, you can go to any doctor, any hospital in the United States that takes Medicare. There are no networks. They have nothing to do with networks. So if you have a Medicare card and you enroll into the supplement program, you call a doctor, you call him up and say, well, I've got this supplement. Do you carry that? No. All you need to ask that doctor is, do you take Medicare? Now, keep in mind that original Medicare is good nationwide. Doesn't matter where you go, because here's how it works. You go to the hospital bills Medicare. Then automatically Medicare crosses that over to your supplement company. Medicare pays, your Medicare pays the provider, the hospital, and then your supplement then will pay the provider. So at that point in time, you don't write a check until everything's gone through the process. And then if there's anything that you owe, for instance, if you do owe the deductible, then, of course, you would get a bill from the provider saying that you owed that amount of money. So that's the difference between that and an Advantage plans. Now, Advantage plans work a little bit different. basically on an Advantage plan, there's co-pays. So it's based on a co-pay situation. Any type of doctor, hospital, it can be diagnostic testing, anything that you have as far as payments are concerned, it's based on co-pays. Now, depending on which program you have on the Advantage side, there are programs on the Advantage side that are PPOs. There's HMOs. There's HMO POSs. So there are different networks. So anytime you have a network, you leave original Medicare and you go to private carrier. It's under strict guidelines of CMS, and they control everything that they do through the Advantage program is controlled by Medicare, but it's private carrier. Okay, so you don't have original Medicare. In original Medicare, pretty much everything is, if it's medically necessary, it's going to get approved in most cases. In the Advantage side, then the carrier makes that decision if there's that's where a lot of times they go, well, we need to get this approved by the insurance company before we can schedule an appointment. You know, you've heard that when you go to the doctor, or give you an example. Let's say you had group coverage and you go to the doctor and there's going to be some diagnostic testing done, or you need some type of surgery, and they say, okay, we need to get this approved by your insurance company. Okay, so there's a lot of that goes on in the Advantage side that does not happen in the supplement side. Also, on the Advantage side, when I tell you there's networks, so let's just say you have an HMO. In most cases, the cost of that HMO is going to be cheaper than what the PPO would cost you. The HMO, the PCP doctor, your personal care physician, are usually at no charge. Your specialist, there would be a charge for. Of course, there'd be co-pays are set up the same way as in the PPO. So every time you go to the doctor, they have diagnostic testing run, also any surgeries or anything like that, there's co-pays. But it's based on co-pays because on the co-pays, you don't have on an Advantage plan, there's not a deductible, so all you pay is the co-pay. And in the Elgin area, pretty much all the HMOs and PPOs there are at zero premium. So that means that it's just zero premium, but it doesn't mean it's free. I think we are going to have a break now, and then as soon as we come back, I'll go back into, because I want to finish this up on the Advantage side and then move on to a couple other things I wanted to talk about today.
And we are back with more here on Medicare Made ABCDEasy with your host today, Danny Gilley.
Okay, we're going to finish up where we were talking about on the Advantage plans. So again, like I said, there's co-pays on everything. So when we start talking about, when I say everything, it's pretty much co-pays except for the ones, the items that are preventive. Some of the preventive programs, there aren't any co-pays, but anything that you would have, like diagnostic, that you would have testing for, there's co-pays for those. There is no deductible, but it's based on your out-of-pocket. So even though there is not a premium assessed with the Advantage plan, I don't want you to think that it is free, because on some of the costs, giving an example, on an MRI, you could be out $200 for that. Let's say you had an emergency room, could be $150 for that. So keep in mind that everything associated with the Advantage side, be it the HMO or the PPO, there is what we call our copays. Now, on the HMO, if you go outside of network, you have no coverage. So you must stay in network unless it's an HMO POS. But you have to stay within your own network. On the PPOs, you can go outside of network, but remember those copays I was telling you about? A lot of those are doubled. Okay, so the cost of the copays can be twice if you go outside, twice the amount if you go outside of network. Now, in the Advantage side, your prescription drug plan is included, so there isn't any additional monthly charge for your prescription drug, but keep in mind all the copays. You would have to pay the copays associated with your particular medication. Tier 1s and Tier 2s are much cheaper. Some of those are free. Some of them are $5 or $10. When you start getting into Tier 3, that's when the cost goes up because almost all of your prescription drug plans, including the ones that are on the Advantage plan, there's a $615 annual deductible for all the Tier 3s. Tier 1s and Tier 2s are not a part of that deductible. Then, of course, after the deductible, then there's initial coverage. And so the cost of those Tier 3s go down considerably, and then the cost of the Tier 1s and Tier 2s, a lot of those can be $0 or $5 or $10 a piece. But those Tier 3s can be pretty expensive. Now, if you have a lot of medications, especially if you have a lot of Tier 3s, you are responsible for $2,100 of the cost of that medication, whether it be in a supplement that has your prescription drug plan separate and a Part D, or if it's through the Advantage side. Once you are out of pocket $2,100, then from that point on, then a lot of the medications are free. So there are some savings there. This is something that's been relatively new over the last couple years to help the people that have large, expensive medications. And so with that, I want you to understand that on the Advantage side, it comes with the medication, with the prescription drug plan included. The supplement, it is not, so it's separate. But I can tell you there's a lot of drug plans out there with zero premium that are available to you, but depending on the medication that you are using. Okay, so let's go into election periods, because this is what we actually are in the middle of now. And when we talk about the Medicare election period, okay, I'm not going to go through the prescription drug because that election period is already over, October 15th through December 7th. So anybody in a Medicare prescription drug plan, you're going to have to stay in what you have now. But there is an exception that if you do enroll into what we call a Medicare Advantage plan, and you found out that you enrolled into the plan that was not the right plan for you. And so you go, well, what can I do? Am I stuck with it? Well, actually, they have a period from January 1 through March 31st. If they made an exception, if there was a mistake made, and you were enrolled into an Advantage plan, and it wasn't what you thought it was, or somebody enrolled you, which happens a lot with the 800 numbers, they enrolled you in the wrong company, that maybe the hospital and the doctors weren't in that network that they enrolled you into. Well, you can, like this is February, so if you change it now in February, by March 1st, we could have you in the new plan. You have to make that decision before the end of March with a start date of April 1st, because after that, then you are stuck on that Advantage plan for the rest of the year. So there are some special election periods. To give you an example, let's say you move out of the area. You're in Elgin and you move to Rockford. Well, you're out of the network. Okay, so then you have a special election period. At that point in time, you can choose either 30 days before you move or 60 days once you get there. You actually can make that change over to a plan that's more suitable in that area that you can get coverage. Also, you can go back to original Medicare and then take a supplement out because you actually are moving into a new network, and so that's an SEP. So there's a lot of things that are open to you. Or if you lose coverage, say your Medicare Advantage plan decides to leave the area, no longer offers services in your service area, then you get an SEP, special enrollment period. But other than that, without that, you have to stick with the annual enrollment was October 15th to December 7th. That's when for Medicare prescription drug plans. And then you have another window that opens up if you're on an Advantage plan and you want to make some changes between January 1 and March 31st. But after that, you're pretty much going to be staying on the same plan thereafter. So the other one is I'm going to talk about when do you enroll? People that are still working and you're covered under an employee group plan. Remember, when you have credible coverage, you do not have to enroll into Medicare at all because you have credible coverage as a group. Okay. Now, if you decide to leave that employment and you need coverage, at that point in time, you could be 80 years old and then turn your Medicare on for the very first time. Now, keep in mind, those penalties only apply if you don't have credible coverage. So let's talk about the person that is working and decides that they now they want to retire. Okay, a lot of employers out there will require that you open up or take your Medicare Part A and Part B. And then they sometimes will offer a retiree program. Now, we don't see that as much as we did a few years ago where they had the retiree programs. Some of them were really pretty good. I know the state of Illinois used to have a really good retiree program. And right now, most of the retiree programs that are available out there now are nothing more than glorified Advantage plans. And some of the employers charge a premium for it, where if you watched your coverage in the open market, you may find that you can buy an Advantage plan at zero premium and have almost everything that you would have in your group coverage. So it's really important to compare that and look to see what works best. So what I tell everybody when they get ready to retire, the first thing that you do is do a side-by-side comparison. So let's look at what Medicare has to offer. Let's look what your group has to offer or your retiree program. So it's really important that you do that side-by-side comparison. Because in the years that we've been in this industry, we've seen a lot of changes. And let me tell you, when I tell you that the changes are not to the better for the employees of the companies. They have taken things away, streamlined their group coverage. So when you turn 65 and you decide, that's okay, I have group coverage, but I'm turning 65. What do I do now? You sit down with Julianne, Eric, and myself, and let us do a side-by-side comparison. Don't take it that you think that your employer is going to offer you that golden program, because that's not what we're seeing. So what I want you to do is bring that evidence of coverage that your employer has for you, and then let's side by side compare it to what's available on Medicare. And then let's compare apples to apples. And I will tell you, if you have a phenomenal retirement or a group plan through your employer, I will tell you, stay there. You're perfectly fine. You don't need to do anything. You can stay on your group. But let's say you have a husband and a wife, and maybe the husband is covering the wife under the group insurance through where he works, and his coverage is relatively covered through the employer, but the wife is turning 65. And I sit down with them and I say, okay, here's what it's costing you to have the wife covered. So this is the amount of money that you're paying per year for her coverage. Well, if we move her to Medicare and then leave just you on the group coverage, look at the money that you can save. Because keep in mind, to have that dependent coverage is very costly. And most of the groups out there charge a pretty good penny for that. So again, moving a spouse over to Medicare and then leaving the husband on the regular group because the group was phenomenal, that's acceptable. Now, we also have found where we've compared the group coverage with what is available on Medicare, and we explain the difference. We go through the supplement and how that would work. Then we go through the Advantage plan and how that would work. It all comes up in black and white. By the time we do that comparison, it basically is pretty simple as to which one you would like to enroll into. Because, again, a lot of the programs for the retiree, especially if you're going to retire, and your company is offering a retiree program, which we don't see that very often. Well, I always tell my clients, believe me, when you were working there, they didn't do you a lot of favors with this group insurance, because how many times have they took things away from you in this group coverage for how many years? Over the last 10 years, how many reductions have you seen in the group coverage? And they're shaking their head, yes. Okay, I said, okay, when you retire, they're going to even care less about you. So I said, make sure, don't think that because they offer a retiree program through an employer plan, that it is that, well, I'll just take my retiree thing through what the company offers because it's going to be better than going on the open market. That's not always true. A lot of times on the open market, people are shocked when they find out that they can get the same thing at zero premium on the retiree plan, with not on the retiree plan, but on the open market through Medicare. So there's a lot of things that, a lot of mistakes that are made in Medicare, a lot of mistakes that are made in turning your Social Security on and the time you want to turn it on. Give you an example, a husband and wife if something happens to one or the other, the Social Security goes to the highest earned stays with the person that's left over. Well, now that husband, if he was working and kept his Social Security on until age 70, it made a huge difference. So when he passed away, his wife receives his Social Security, but she doesn't receive hers. Because in most cases, and not all, the husband's is higher, but there's exceptions. So having that knowledge is very important when you're going through the maze of Medicare, what's available out there. And what I always tell clients, because what I say is I want to educate you. So when I talk to you about a Medicare supplement, I'm educating you on how that program works. And then when I talk to you about the supplement program, the Advantage side, then when I go through that, I'm educating you. And then it's your decision as to which program that you want to move into. People don't, I always tell my clients, don't look at just the cost, because that is not the true coverage that you're getting. So give you an example. If you buy the supplement, and besides the monthly premium, and you only have an annual deductible that you have to pay, but you can go to any doctor, any hospital in the United States, you can travel with that, take that policy with you wherever you travel. You can go to Johns Hopkins, you can go to Northwestern. It opens up so your amount of coverage that you get is so much better. Some people that look at the Advantage side, and I always tell them, don't look at just that zero premium because there's copays on everything, but there's also limitations, okay? You may not be able to go to a certain doctor. If it's an HMO, I can guarantee you can't go outside of network. But even if you go outside of network and you have a PPO and those copays are double, it can be very, very costly. And keep in mind, if you happen to get diagnosed with cancer and you have MRIs, you have CT scans, you have testing, blood tests, one after another, and then maybe you need radiation and you need chemotherapy thereafter. And a lot of those services are at 20% that you have to pay as a copay. So they get expensive, and you don't have the flexibility. Now, again, I have some clients that are on the Advantage plans, and they love them. So, it's really the individual. We are lucky, though, that in the Chicago market, there are a lot of Advantage plans there that are open to maybe some of them have all 5 teaching hospitals in them. So we are very, very lucky what is available to us in the Chicago market. Again, it depends on you personally, what you want as far as your coverage is concerned. Now, I always tell my clients that if you're not paying anything for the coverage on a monthly basis other than what you're paying for your Part B, and also what is chipped in from Medicare, if you realize the cost that you're paying, that the difference in that in the supplement can come into the cost of the copays, but then you don't have that flexibility that you can go to any hospital, any doctor. And for people that want to set up a good program so they know exactly what it's going to cost them each month, if they get something, an upcoming issue that is very costly, like in a cancer situation or surgeries. You don't want to have all those co-pays every time you go to the doctor. You're dropping money. And so I always tell you that that person, or say you travel outside of Elgin and you go to Arizona or Florida or Tennessee in the winter, okay, you're a good candidate for a supplement, not so much on an advantage side. So there are different decisions that you will use in making that decision. So that's the reason why we tell you that with Julianne, Eric, and myself, when we sit down with you, our job is to educate you. And then you decide which one you want. It doesn't matter to us because we carry both. But so that you don't have a situation where you go, gee, I wished I hadn't have done it that way because now I've got these expenses to carry. Or you're going, I'm limited in the dollars that I can put out for my health care. So we look at those, and we keep that in mind, too, so that if that advantage side is the side you want to be on, well, then we want to make sure that your doctor, your hospital is there, that whoever your specialists are in the program. So we make sure that if you do decide you want that advantage plan, we want to make sure that your specialists are in the network, the doctor, your PCP doctors in that network. We try as best as we can. And then also look at some of the co-pays. Again, the HMO co-pays are going to be less than the PPOs, but at least you have a good working idea as what the costs are going to be and exactly what you're going to be responsible for. It makes a difference because the decision that you make, and a lot of times you could be stuck with that program. And I'll give you an example. If you have health issues and you get into an advantage plan and you have health issues and you decide you want to go to a supplement, well, the supplement company can decline you. There's no guarantee. The only guarantee you have is during the initial enrollment. So at that point, we are still lucky in Illinois. We have one company that does not ask any health questions, but I can tell you their premiums are considerably higher. So you really want to keep that in mind. If you're having any upcoming surgeries or anything like that you're having, make sure you look at that supplement for that area because, that would cover pretty much all of those. So we ask all those questions when we sit down with you and talk to you about your coverage. We're running out of time. I just wanted to make sure that our reservation line is 630-320-6906. Our insurance, our website is ddginsurance.com. And again, we'll be back here the first Tuesday in March. And we're going to have some updates as far as workshops that are going to be available to us in March. And so till next month, take it easy, and we hope to talk to you on the radio. Thank you.